Okay, so what if I told you the secret to success wasn't about working harder, but about working smarter? Today, we're diving into ReWork, a book that's going to challenge pretty much everything you thought you knew about building a successful business. Right off the bat, this is not your typical business textbook. You know, its very first piece of advice is to completely ignore what everybody calls the real world. And it doesn't stop there, not by a long shot. It actually argues that chasing growth is a trap, that failure is overrated, and that planning for the long term is basically a waste of your time. So you have to ask, is this genius or is it just totally reckless? Let's break down the core ideas of ReWork and see why its completely counterintuitive advice might just be the most practical way to get things done today. So first up, we're going to look at how ReWork wants us to fundamentally rethink the very rules of the game. You know when people say, oh, that would never work in the real world? The book argues that's not a fact. It's just an excuse. It's an excuse born from pessimism. ReWork's message here is really simple. Don't let their world define what's possible in yours. And with that mindset, ReWork just starts systematically tearing down some of the most sacred cows in the business world. It's kind of fun to watch. So first on the chopping block, the beloved business plan. We're all taught from day one that you need this super detailed 5-year plan just to even get started. But ReWork just calls plans what they really are, guesses. I mean, think about it. You have the least amount of information at the very beginning of a project. So why on earth would you make these rigid long-term decisions then? The real key is to stay flexible, to improvise, and just focus on what's right in front of you. Okay, next up is this almost romantic idea that you have to fail to succeed. You know the whole mantra, fail fast, fail often, as if it's some kind of necessary step on the ladder to success. Yeah, ReWork says that's totally backwards. Failure doesn't teach you what to do next, it only tells you what not to do. Success, on the other hand, gives you a template, something you can actually repeat. There's even a Harvard study mentioned in the book that found successful entrepreneurs are way more likely to succeed again, while folks who failed have about the same success rate as first-timers. So the takeaway? Learn from your wins. All right, now for a really big one, this obsession with growth. This idea that every single business has to constantly get bigger, hire more people, and expand, expand, expand. ReWork asks a really simple question. Why? You know, maybe the perfect size for your business is 5 people. Maybe it's just you. Growing for the sake of ego or because you think you're supposed to just leads to more complexity, more stress, and makes you way less agile. The real goal should be to be sustainable, not just to scale up. And finally, there's the myth that overworking is somehow heroic. Our culture just loves to celebrate the person who's pulling all-nighters and sleeping at the office. Being a workaholic doesn't mean you get more done. It just means you spend more time working. It usually leads to burnout, bad solutions, and frankly, a pretty toxic culture. The real goal isn't more hours, it's more efficiency. Okay, so if all these old rules are broken and we're throwing them out the window, what are we actually supposed to do? Well, let's dive into ReWork's framework for how to take action. This is where ReWork stops tearing things down and starts building things up. It offers a set of principles for a much simpler, more direct way to get going. First thing, forget the word startup. That word conjures up this fantasy land where making money is optional and you can just burn through cash forever. ReWork says, no, start a real business, one that has a path to actually being profitable from day one. And what kind of business should you start? The advice here is awesome and simple. Make something that you yourself desperately need. When you're solving your own problem, you already know the market, you know all the pain points, and you can tell instantly if your solution is actually any good. I mean, just think about it for a second. James Dyson was just tired of his vacuum clogging up. Bill Bowerman was a coach who just needed better running shoes for his team. The guys who wrote this book built Basecamp because they needed a better way to manage their own projects. They were all just scratching their own itch. And the next core idea, learn to love constraints. We always think we need a ton of money and resources to get started, but ReWork argues the exact opposite is true. Seriously, do you really need investors? A fancy office? A full staff right away? A huge marketing budget? Having less actually forces you to be more creative, to be frugal, and to focus only on what is absolutely essential. Constraints aren't a liability, they're actually an advantage in disguise. And this all brings us to the final and maybe the most important piece of advice in the whole book. We all have that friend who says, I had the idea for Uber years ago. ReWork would say that's completely worthless. An idea is just a starting point. The real value, the thing that matters, is in the execution. You can have the most brilliant idea in the history of the world, but it means absolutely nothing until you start building it. The only way to learn, to test, to make any progress at all, is to start making something right now. And ReWork leaves us with this really powerful thought. That little spark of excitement you get for a new idea, it has an expiration date. Don't let it fade away in some dusty file of plans and what-ifs. The message is crystal clear. Act on it now. So what idea are you going to bring to life today?
If you enjoyed this summary and found it valuable, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us bring more powerful insights and the next great book straight to you.